This is Paul Wilson.
And Chris Emke.
And you're listening to Diesel Performance Podcast. Chris, I wanted to kick off the show talking about an interesting truck that we had in the shop last week.
Yeah.
It was that LLY that we were talking about the other day.
Yeah, you did a TikTok video on it, didn't you?
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. For the guys who aren't already following Duramax Tuner on TikTok, which I understand.
It's definitely a different age bracket, to say the least.
It is a media platform, we'll call it that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But Chris, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about that LLY and why it was so interesting?
Yeah, so the owner's name of that truck, his name was Michael Lewis. And Michael Lewis is, he's a past customer, okay? But about 4 months ago, he decided he was going to do some injector upgrades on his 04.5 LOY, and he was going to do a turbo upgrade, and he found a shop local in his area that modified existing turbos. So he's like, screw it, I'm going to give them my turbo, and they're going to go through it, and they're going to machine and do all these things, and, they're going to turn it into a 64, right? So he was all pumped. Gets the truck back, everything's together. The truck wasn't running the best. Within about 800 miles, the first that turbo that was put on imploded. Okay.
Oof.
No worries. There's a warranty, right? There's people that stand behind their work, and he ended up taking the truck back to them, and they warrantied it. They did a second turbocharger. Within about 1,000 miles, second turbo imploded. Really odd, right? Really weird. So now I didn't know any of this until the third turbo is put on the truck, and Mike calls us and knows our name, knows our reputation, knows that we do turbos, wanted to get a second opinion. So from the get-go, it's like, well, knowing what we know about turbochargers, there's generally a root cause for something like that to occur. And Mike is definitely a passionate, energetic individual, and mile a minute, just so much information. He has a lot of feelings and emotion in this, right? I mean, who wouldn't? It's a lot of money. It's your truck that's down. He's owned the truck from new, really pretty truck. Like, the truck's well maintained.
Yeah.
So while we're on the phone, done boost checks. Well, they did the install. Okay, well, did they do a boost check? They're a turbo company. They should be, like, that's 101, right? So he couldn't tell me, couldn't give me an answer. Needless to say, he lost all faith in the turbo. Okay?
Sure.
There was a couple other things that were going that he was unhappy with. So he drove 800 miles to come from Arkansas to upper state of Illinois to have us look at the truck. Within 5 minutes of the truck being in the shop, we used one of our stealth boost test kits that we have. Within 5 minutes, the intercooler tank end was blown out. And that was the video that you did on TikTok.
Yeah.
So wouldn't even hold 10 PSI, just pissing air. Well, I had to explain to him, like, as your turbochargers are imploding, like blowing up, you're talking about the turbos not seeing a ton of boost. The turbos were making a shit ton of boost
out
of the
spinning.
turbo.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But there wasn't enough air reading past the map sensor making its way into the engine because it was escaping to the atmosphere.
Right.
So we did a Stealth 64 for him. Okay. We did a new intercooler for him. We get everything buttoned up. Before we even do a test drive, right, we do another boost leak down test. A second boost leak at the Y bridge. Now, we wouldn't have found that because of the intercooler, right? So we had to fix that one, get everything sealed, then find the next boost leak. So here's a guy who spends a couple $1,000s on a turbocharger, right? He's kept the truck. He's done a lot of upgrades to the truck over the years. Thinks he's going to buy a turbocharger. It's going to be an end-all be-all from what he says was a reputable shop in his area, right? Keep that anonymous. And then to have 3 turbos back-to-back have problems, right? So when he was here, one of the experiences was giving him that data, right? Here you go. Here is why that failed. Here is where the culprit lies.
Yeah.
Here's the second culprit. You get those things buttoned up. We're not changing the tune. We're not changing the fuel injector or the pump. We're not changing anything. All we're doing is putting a turbo in the truck that mechanically works and making sure it's mechanically sound.
Yeah.
Right? A couple days later, he picked up his truck. He drove home. The mileage home was the longest drive that truck had stayed together over the last 3 months from the previous turbochargers.
Sure.
So it leads me into kind of like what we're going to get into our next topic, and that's boost leak awareness, right?
Yeah.
We see it so many times. The Turbo Stealth line is big as our brand over at Calibrated Power is concerned. We've definitely grown that side of the business, offering other new turbochargers and things like that. But we see so many times that guys overlook boost leaks. They overlook the ability to verify their boost charge system. And it's a total miss. It's a total miss.
Do you know, it's always surprising to me, too, because we have been talking about boost leaks internally
for years.
At Duramax since I've been here, and since before,
a really popular video that we did on YouTube was back in 15 or 16 with an LOI who that customer had drivability issues, some low power, some smoke output on a stock truck. That truck went to 3 different dealers before coming to us. And one of our techs, 5 minutes, oh yeah, your Y bridge is leaking.
And that's all it was.
Think of how much money, time, emotion is built into that.
Well, and I think that's it too, right? Is because I usually think about boost leaks in this like very functional, like, oh, you're going to catch it as the boost leak just sucks to drive. It impacts all of these things I would notice on a daily.
Oh, well, the truck, I can hear it spool up, and I'm making X amount of boost on the gauge. Like, guys, that doesn't work. We're talking a controlled pressurization of the air charge system.
And one of the things that I think like the common boost tester out there, what we had traditionally used that it always misses is getting the connection from the turbo to the hot side pipe and the compressor cover itself, because surprisingly enough, like, and especially I'll even call them out, the newer hull sets from the factory, compressor covers leaking is actually fairly common.
It is fairly common.
It's not like, oh, you might find 1 in a million. It's like, no, we should test them all, kids.
Like you'll find 3 or 4 out of the 10. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I think with that backstory, it kind of inspired what our promotion's going to be over at Calibrated Power Duramax Tuner for our 4th of July promo.
That's right. Yeah. So 4th of July promo, we have some hard dates on it and some hard details for you guys. So I'll kick us off. June 21st is going to be the big launch day for our 4th of July sale. So getting you guys in early. So if you're going on vacation, I wanted to make sure that you guys had some time to get what you need and getting on the truck before you head off for the weekend. And then we're going to run that all the way out to July 9th. Again, just in case you were on vacation, wanted to give you some time to be able to still take advantage.
And what's unique with this is we're doing things a little different, Paul, right? So it's any of our Stealth line of turbocharger, right? Whether it's, a Duramax, LB7, LOI, LBZ, LMM, LML, L5P, Cummins 5.9. We have a couple other turbos, right, that we're going to be talking about here in a second. But we're doing a free boost test kit with every turbocharger. That itself has a value of anywhere from $225 to $300, depending on the faceplate. But you're going to get the heavy-duty regulator. You're going to get the faceplate for that corresponding RPO free with every turbo sale.
That's right. Yeah, so it's not an accident that every Stealth turbo we sell, we also sell a corresponding Stealth boost test kit.
And it's not an accident that our techs have every faceplate in their toolbox for trucks when they do come in-house, and that is a staple. Anytime a truck goes on the dyno, before it even gets strapped to the dyno, boost test. When the truck comes into the shop, just to verify whatever that situation is, it gets a boost test before it gets loaded up on the rack and before it leaves the rack.
That's right.
It's a foundation. It's a staple. It is, anytime we touch a truck, we want to verify the boost system health.
That's right. That's right. So I thought this is going to be a great option for you guys out there. I know I'm really excited. We've already had some early feedback. So if you've been thinking about a turbo, if you've been thinking about it might be time to upgrade, this is definitely that cherry on top that I think just makes it a really, really great deal for you. Hey, tuning customers, we didn't forget about you guys either. Any tuning orders that ship out during this time, we're going to include a free brand new Tuned It hat. So Tuned It's a new hashtag we're running here with the company, really trying to get that message out there. That is going to run while supplies last. That was a limited hat run. So we only had so many printed. So as soon as we're out of those, we're out of those. And I pretty much would venture to guess we are going to run out of those. So if you want to get a tuning order in, do it as early as you can during the sale. Again, that kicks off June 21st.
Now
go ahead. I was going to say June 21st is
another
big day for us.
Yeah. So there is, I'll do both of the new turbos. So for a lot of our OG listeners and guys that are really following the company, we've done a soft launch in the past with the L5P Stealth 67 G2 Turbo.
That's right.
There's a lot of our dealers that have been promoting and pushing that. The product works. Guys are really happy with that. Us as an organization never had it on our website. We never did a hard launch. That goes into effect June 21st, so that product is officially live. And then what I am most excited about is the final release of our Stealth 64 VGT turbocharger for the 6.7 Cummins, which supports 07.5 all the way through 2018. Paul, you know that we've been R&Ding it on my truck for a year and a half now.
Sure.
There's been a lot of bullshit, a lot of hurdles, a lot of learning, and I don't mean bullshit in a bad way, but we learned a lot about that turbocharger. We learned a lot about improving the technology, and I really, really wholeheartedly believe that we have something that is going to be different in the market space. It's still a drop-in replacement, but we've learned a lot and have done a lot into the exhaust side, right? With the nozzle ring, the vane design, the turbine wheel, the size of the turbine, the depth of the turbine, so many things that were in the performance lacking with some of the other products on the market.
That's right. That's right.
Super, super excited about that.
And so what's surprising is both this HE351 or HE300 VG, whatever you're going to call it for your truck, the vane assembly works very, very different than
unique.
Any other truck. So other trucks, we have a stationary spot, and then vanes pivot. So the vanes move up and down or in a lateral slide there. So they adjust the depth of they adjust the gap between one vane and the next one, and that's how they direct flow. Now the Cummins actually has fixed vanes, so the vanes never move their angle. They're always at a fixed angle, but they have a plate that moves in and out around the turbine wheel. Well, everybody who's customizing these turbos, and there's other guys out there making aftermarket turbos for these trucks, it's extremely in-depth engineering and developing and research to be able to design your own exhaust side of this turbo, because it is very unique, it is very complicated, and it has to be perfect. If you're going to get it to work, it has to be perfect. And that's what we've taken the time to do.
I think to simplify this, right, the factory vane depth or height is 7 millimeters. In our turbocharger, we're going to an 11 millimeter vane height. That is huge in the performance in the aftermarket in regards to performance for the turbocharger, because we are putting the bigger turbine wheel in there. Generally, naturally, that's going to call for a slower spool up. So having more of a pathway for the vane to be able to flow air is going to help compensate for that, for a turbo to respond very similar to stock. So what we have is a turbo that is 700 plus wheel capable reliably. That's not saying that we're pushing this turbo to its peak capacity to make that, because there are other turbos on the market that advertise those numbers, and those turbos have to be pushed. You have to push them real hard for that. But you could do this with no retuning, right? So you don't need a new tune for the truck based off of what you currently have on the truck. It's still a drop-in replacement, and you have that ability to grow. And we already know I had a lot of data with the compounds on the black truck and different turbo configurations, and we're in a really good spot that not only is that turbo going to make power, but it's going to severely relieve and control drive pressures. Drive pressures are going to drop when pushing the charger. So it's one of those things where it's a year and a half of labor. I mean, this turbo's been in the works and in conversation for years over here.
Oh, yeah.
So to see this product finally see through, clearly as I'm talking about it, I'm passionate about it, right? Like I'm very, very much...
The cum dog is coming out.
But I'm excited, and I think it's... I'm really excited to get on some customers' trucks and, get some real-world feedback on, what we've been working on for such a long time.
Absolutely.
And then we have a new tuning platform, Paul. We have a new tuning platform coming out on the 21st.
So two turbos. So we have the L5P turbo. We have the newer 6.7 Cummins turbos. And then we also, of course, we're launching the 2020 Ford Power Stroke tuning. Now, this is a bench flash service, so it's a little bit different than some of the other tuning platforms we offer. What's really exciting about the 2020 tuning package is we're setting it up to be a complete tuning package. So you need, and I want to say it that way, you need, not you're going to want, but you need the transmission tuning along with your engine tuning. Well, and that's where we knew we could make big power on the 6.7 platform. I mean, we're brushing right up against 600 horsepower, emissions equipped, all stock truck, nothing but a tune.
And switch on the fly supported. So we're offering an SOTF switch. You're getting 5 different power levels with the switch on the fly in a 2020-2021 platform for right now. And then we offer full TCM support for the 10 speeds, which, Paul, from the guys that I'm talking to with the new 2020 plus Fords, they don't really complain about too much in the power category. They complain a little bit maybe in the throttle latency and things like that, but the transmission's the big piece.
Yeah.
In the transmission, sometimes you need to tune the engine and help the torque range and the throttle input and how that is communicating with the transmission to get the trans to understand that, so that the trans holds the right gear, shifts when it needs to shift, locks converter when it needs to lock. It's all about total transparency between the two controllers.
That's right. Absolutely. So this complete tuning package is going to be literally, for 99%, it's going to be all you're ever going to do to your truck besides maybe throw wheels, tires, and tint on it.
Yeah. That's a good truck. That's a good build of a truck, though.
That's it, right? That's it. That fully built stock.
That short. Yeah.
That fully built stock is finally so simple to do, right? And I think this is going to be another killer platform that you guys are going to love it. This is the type of upgrade you do that you talk about forever because it's your favorite thing that you ever did to the truck, right?
Absolutely.
Guys, I can't wait. All of this is rolling out June 21st. If you're not already on, jump on over to Duramax Tuner and hit the Contact Us page or hit the subscribe to the blog page. Either one of those will put you in the queue so that we'll follow up with details about the sale. Chris, our listeners, also, I love when they reach out directly to us. The easiest way for them to get a hold of you if they want to share their contact information with you is?
My email is cmkey@duramaxtuner.com, or they can call me at the shop, 815-568-7920, extension 2121. And Paul, I'm going to add, I get a good amount of people that do call me based off of that information on the podcast, and I really appreciate it. To the guys that call with 7.3s and 12 valves, I'm not that much of a help, right? That's not my profession, right? That's not my wheelhouse. But I'll do what I can to help where I can. So
there you go. At least point them in the right direction,
absolutely.
Right? I love that. All right, guys. Well, hey, I know that's a lot of sale and new product release information. I'm also excited to get back to we actually had a bit of a diesel superstar in the studio last week. And we had a guest co-host come in and hang out for the interview.
Yeah, no, Anthony, one of our sales guys over here, did a phenomenal job, and he did a really nice job as far as supporting David Shepard over at Hoosier Diesel. So David had reached out. He's got a 2020 L5P dually. He wanted us to do some tuning on, so we're like, you know what? Come in house. We'll do the install. We'll hang out. Maybe get you on a podcast. And anyone that's ever dealt with David, anyone that's ever seen him on social media or whatever, he lives and breathes diesel. He loves the industry. He loves, what we all do as a whole. And I think that was the main purpose for him driving, from Indiana into Illinois, which still a 4 or 5 hour drive from where he's at, but to come in house and, waste half a day hanging out with us, getting him on the mic. Right?
It's such a badass looking truck.
It is.
Too,
that you make the joke about, the fully built stock, it's crazy what a newer truck can look like with wheels, with tints, and then having a little go-go juice behind it. These newer trucks, man, who would have thought, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, when we were getting in this stuff, that in 2020, 2021, you could do a tune-only 600-horse truck and just blow the fucking doors off of a lot of shit on the street, right? It's super cool.
That's right, guys. Make sure you stick around. Right after a word from our sponsors, we're going to get back to David Shepard from Hoosier Diesel, and we actually hit him up talking about going from big, badass, loud and rowdy trucks to driving an emissions-equipped L5P, and what on earth would motivate somebody to want to do that?
Yeah.
Engineered for use with both gas and diesel engines, the XDP X-Factor is the perfect choice to restore lost power in your engine. This unique blend is a 100% synthetic friction reducer that's specially formulated to decrease engine wear, improve fuel economy, and reduce the oil operating temperature of your diesel engine. On 6.0 liter Power Stroke engines, X-Factor eliminates the common stiction issues and helps restore failing HEUI injectors. X-Factor is more than just an engine oil additive. Use in your power steering system or add it to your gear oil for enhanced protection. X-Factor is safe for use with both synthetic and conventional oils, and one 8-ounce bottle treats up to 5 quarts of oil. To find out more about the XDP X-Factor High Performance Oil Additive, head over to xdp.com or find a local dealer near you.
Chris, people have been hearing us talk about Exergy Performance Well, since the start of the show.
Right, of course. They've been a believer since the inception, to say the least.
I know I just recently talked to Randy Harkema over there. Guys, of course, you recognize him from our snake oil or not fuel additive episode. He's one of the guys at Exergy that we rely on for technical expertise. And I thought it was really cool. I was just talking to him about going to UCC.
Okay.
You remember the booth that they bring to UCC every year?
Yeah, I remember 2019. They do this really cool engine stand with a Cummins, with their standalone, with a throttle, a hand throttle, and you can, be part of the engine operating. They start it, you can rev it and all that cool stuff. And I think it's really cool because it gives you that hands-on experience to say, hey, here's Exergy's fuel system, here's Exergy standalone, Bosch standalone, here's everything working.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you can't forget it once you've seen it.
Chris, WC Fab and WC Fab powder coating. It's going to be one of those places that if you go to their shop and kind of hang out and see even just the foyer, like the waiting room, you're going to be wildly impressed.
It's tough because you don't know if someone were to tell me, hey, they do all these crazy powder coat colors, they do compound turbo kits, triple turbo kits, intercooler piping kits, whatever. I am a very simplistic individual, so I have a basic thought process or picturing in my head of what's going on. And if you see their work in person, they're very meticulous with, their fabrication. The welding is superb. But their coloring options that they have from their in-house powder coating service is second to none. There's like 400 colors that they keep in stock.
Yeah.
All of their signature colors are, they're the most popular for a reason. They stick out the most. And I mean, Paul, man, over the years being at Calibrated Power, we have seen so many WC Fab trucks come and go, being on the dyno, things like that. And, I remember when I first started, it was exciting to see a 700, 800, or 1,000 wheel horse truck, and you just know if a truck's coming from WC Fab here, it's going to make big power. I normally just get excited for what kind of color schemes under the hood of the truck. But, you're going to get what you pay for. They offer a really good quality product, and they have a really good support staff. They're going to stand behind what they do, and I think that goes a long way, especially this day and age in this industry.
Absolutely. David from Hoosier Diesel, how the hell are you?
Hey, I'm pretty good, man. Thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem. Thank you so much for joining us. It's rare we get an out-of-town guest in the studio anymore, so it's actually a pleasure to be here in person. We, of course, also have Anthony Brunetti with us. Anthony, how's it going?
Good. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. So, Anthony, you work here at Duramax Tuner. David, you're from Hoosier Diesel. Where are you guys located?
Northwest Indiana. We're about 45 minutes outside of Chicago. So, Maryville area.
Okay.
Yep. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's right off of I-65.
Yeah. I know. Just passed it on going back and forth to UCC. So
exactly.
I'm right in that,
I'm right
that stone's throw. Now, Anthony, you and David have worked together a little bit recently on some emissions-equipped L5P tuning, and I can't wait to dive into that and talk more about it. But I thought first we would start off with, David, tell us a little bit about how you got your start in diesel performance.
I've always been a big fan of trucks, even when I was a little kid. I used to go down to visit my grandfather and all of my kinfolks, and it was nothing but tractors, combines, and, working on old Cadillacs. So I've just been a gearhead pretty much all my life, not necessarily just diesels, but, anything that had wheels, I like to go fast, too. I like speed, so... but as far as trucks, I've always been a big fan of trucks. My uncles and my dad, they used to have these RC trucks that they built, back in the 80s, and it was cool watching them build these little things from scratch. But they would take them out and actually go mudding with these things, and it was the coolest thing ever, and I just think, with trucks and diesels, it's a lifestyle. So, but ever since I was a kid, though, the passion has always been there.
Yep.
So now I love fixing trucks. Making trucks go fast is cool. But for me, when a truck comes in not running, and it's broke, or, it might have been to a couple of other shops and they couldn't fix it, or for whatever reason, I get a lot of accomplishment out of that, because it's like, hey, man, I was able to fix this. It's fixed right. And we send it on down the road. So my shop is really heavy repair based. We do some performance too, but, we're really diving into the emissions intact tuning, because it's just that's where the industry's headed. A lot of guys like myself, I like to just get in the vehicle and drive it. I don't like listening to all the noise. I'm getting older. I mean, everybody used to do it, right? Everybody used to, roll coal and, stuff like that, do burnouts in the middle of the street. But, I'm getting a little bit older, and it's just, emissions intact is, you keep your same factory warranty. So this is something we've been playing around with.
Sure. So, well, and I laugh because I know when I was a kid, it's like 212 Rockford Fosgate sub slammed in the trunk of the Sentra. You were like, I'm the shit. Yep. Yeah. And then now you're like, ooh, it has a really nice Bose or Infinity system from the factory. You're like,
options. That's what sold me. That's like the first thing I check when I get into a truck, right? I hook up my Bluetooth or, my Apple CarPlay or whatever the case may be, and I test the sound system,
You got to, and I laugh too because I know like when I first started coming around diesel, I'm like, oh man, there's nothing like a turbo screaming and like a Duramax, especially like Duramax twin kit with like big 5-inch exhaust. It's like, I get this. Yeah. And then you're absolutely right. It's like you start to get some age and you're like, man, I know Boone's Farm will get you drunk, but like a good wine is like also tastes good. And that's kind of what I think about with like diesel, right? It's like when you get in, you're like, well, give me everything. Like, let's go. Let's do fast, dumb shit. Let's be as loud, as obnoxious as we can. And then you start to fall in love with the trucks, and you're like, well, man, this would be really nice to be nice too, right? It's
or at least hear who's on the phone, right? Big problem, especially when you get older. Your hearing starts to deteriorate. It's like, man, I can't hear. So for me, I just like getting into the truck, and I like quiet. Turn my music up. So. But I was young once. I'm still young, but it's nothing wrong with rolling coal and what these kids are doing. But I'm geared towards the working man, like my repair facility. So, we do a lot of service work too outside the shop, service trucks. We repair light, medium, heavy equipment, off-road stuff, agricultural equipment and stuff like that. So I love it. I love trucks, diesels, anything.
That's the fun stuff to work on too, isn't it? It's like when you get to go out and like, granted, there's no luxuries when you're doing like on the field, in the field repairs or on the side of the road repairs. It's like that's not no mechanic is like, oh man, I can't wait to lay in gravel and fucking wrench on this thing.
Exactly.
but I think there is that like that rescue feeling. Right, of like especially I know like with farmers or guys who have like the service equipment where you do have to repair it on the side of the road, and that's not somebody's creature comfort. Like you're not fixing the air conditioning. Right. You're like getting a business back up and running. Mm-hmm. And like I know for me, like those are always the people that I like. You feel that extra sense of accomplishment when you're able to get in and participate with that.
Absolutely. So and that's why I do what I do. I have a lot of guys at the shop that work. Part of the team, and they're passionate about what they do, If a customer calls, hey, I'm right on 65, might need a quick connect fitting or a trans line or something like that, and because it sucks being on the side of the road. We've all been there.
Especially when you drive by, you're like, oh, it must suck to be that guy.
Yeah, we've all done that, right? We've all done that. But no, fixing trucks is where it's at for me, So. That's a passion right there.
I love that. Now, Anthony, you came out of wrenching and into an office job. Do you hate working on trucks now?
I don't hate it, but I don't prefer it. It was just different. Going to tech school, like I've worked in a shop for a couple of years, so like I've seen both sides of it. Yeah. So I should say I definitely appreciate the hard work the techs and stuff do because it is not an easy job.
I infamously hate turning wrenches. I have absolutely no interest in it. So my heart always goes out to guys like you, David, who are like, oh no, I love doing this. I'm like, oh well, thank God.
Well, hold on, I didn't say. Wait a minute, No, I love turning wrenches. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
The problem I run into though is when I do go to turn a wrench or try to help the guys out in the back. Hey, Dave, there's a customer here to see you, or there's a phone call. Or there's the email, and it's like I can't concentrate on, the task at hand. So I would love to just, not deal with customers all the time, every day, all day, and just go in the shop because it's a release for me, right? So and then I get to work with the guys in the back and, You know, but
and who doesn't love their boss wrenching next to them?
yeah, I mean,
It's like that way when you hear like his hand slip off the wrench and bust the knuckles, you're like,
I know,
get me better soap.
But I mess with my guys a lot though. I'll never forget too when one of my shop manager, I think he had just put a 6.0 in engine, 6.0, 7.3, something like that. Anyway, I just walked by. He was getting ready to start it. He cranked it up, and I just take the wrench and I start beating on it.
I've seen that happen.
Seen that happen? I
Yes,
start
oh,
beating.
shit.
He goes, oh shit! His eyes, and I did it in sync with the trucks, you know. And he's like, oh, dude, you just scared the shit out of me, man, you know. But you know, and if you don't, I like working next to my guys too, because everybody can't do what we do.
Right.
You know, I kind of think that you know, being a diesel mechanic is it's a different type of, you know, lifestyle, right, than working on gas stuff.
There also is just this amount of tribal knowledge that I feel like diesel mechanics don't realize they have, where like you wouldn't know nearly as much about boost testing if you weren't strictly around diesels all day, every single day, right? Like you wouldn't know as much about like these little ins and outs of like, oh no, I know how many bolts go or screws go into the fender wall, right? Like, like they should all go back,
right?
So that's where like I laugh about like sometimes I think it's after years of doing it and you still have a passion for it.
Yeah,
that's a part of it. Is like you said, it's that culture. It's that like this is a lifestyle. This is like we love doing this. We love being around it. Guess what we do when we're not at work? We talk about diesel trucks.
Yeah.
Like how many people go home like you know. My mom was a teacher. She never came home and was like, ooh, the lesson plans for tomorrow. I can't wait. You know, like, that's like she loved being a teacher, but like not that much.
Yeah, I mean, and same thing like when you see trucks going down the road and, you know, you see the bluish smokes, like, okay, his oil seals might be bad on his turbo.
You see an LB7 drive by or haze, and you're like, dude,
he
needs injectors. Yeah,
So we just said an LB7 driving by. Everything else is implied, right? They're all hazing.
Yeah, yeah, you know, but it's cool though. You know, diesels are great. Like I said, it's a lifestyle culture.
Well, and I think being around them too is fun. Anthony, I know you had gone, like we talked about, it's from wrenching on them to being on the phone about them, but I know we still do a ton of troubleshooting over the phone.
Oh, yeah.
And whether it's with end users or whether it's with shop owners, we kind of always are in this like, let's start at the beginning. Like we're in tuning, so it's always our fault. Everybody who calls.
Yeah. or the best is 2 years later, the tune went bad.
Yes.
Yes.
The tune went bad.
A little advice from Diesel Performance Podcast. Your tune did not go bad. But it is, right? So we deal with that, and I know as like shop owners, you deal with like those same guys and those same problems. What are some of the ones that you think could like really stand out in your mind about the wildest troubleshooting you've had to go through on a truck?
Man, I actually had one here probably about 2 months ago, and this was on a 6.0. Customer call. We had just, I don't know if I can use the word bulletproof because people get kind of been out of shape with that word.
You can use it here.
I use it, okay. But, you know, we had, this truck was like a F550, low miles on it. It had like 60,000 original miles. I mean, that thing was unmolested. And we, you know, head studded it, did the whole 9 yards. He didn't want to do ejectors at the time, right? So we sent it on and down the road, hadn't heard from the guy until about a year later. He says, hey, man, I'm having an issue. You know, I was driving the truck, and then all of a sudden it was up to temp, and it just starts misfiring. So I said, okay. You know, he gets it into the shop, and you can let the truck idle all day long, and it won't hiccup. As soon as you start giving it some throttle, it just starts misfiring. Sounds like it's got a big cam in it, starts smoking. No trouble codes at all. No.
That's always the best one to start from, right?
Right, you know, because it's like, do I go after fuel, air, or maybe a bad electrical problem, you know?
Do you just Google come and swap?
But so what ended up happening is I sent the injectors out to be tested, right? Because my oil pressure was great, fuel pressure was great, compression was great. And I was at a loss, you know, and the guys actually handed me this job because they were lost. So we sent the injectors out to be tested. The injectors were rough, but they weren't bad. So we put them back in, and I'm starting to look at, you know, like the lab scope and starting to look at cam and crank signal. Cam and crank signal were dead nuts on when the truck was at idle. But when you gave it throttle, it was erratic. So the question is that a cause or is that an effect? You know, is the cam walking or is the crank walking? What's going on? So, you know, I ended up ohming out the entire truck, the wire harness, and everything is checking out okay. And I'm at a loss for this thing, right? And I even got a notepad, right? Like, okay, this is the value I got, you know, for this. These are the ohms I got for this wire. So finally one day, it had just been bothering me. I go back to the shop, and I said, I'm going to ohm everything out after the truck's been sitting a couple of days. Ohmed everything out. It was perfect. Then I went to go ohm it out after we warmed it up, and that's when I found that it was, and this is the crazy part about it, and I've never seen this. I said, I'm swapping the crank sensor. Now, on 6.0's, they don't go bad. You know, I've probably only swapped like 2 or 3 of them since they've been out. So pulled the crank sensor out, swapped it with a new one, fixed the issue. Well, I didn't even see an issue that was wrong with the old one. So wiped it off, and I just set it on my desk. I come back 2 days later, there's oil still coming out of it. So it had a hairline crack in it that only opened up. It opened up once the truck started to warm up.
Yeah.
And that's when it started misfiring. Now, and as far as the crack would stay closed if you gave it no throttle, because what? You have lower oil, you just a regular 500-600 PSI at idle. Well, when you gave it more, it would split that crack open, and that's when you got your erratic signal. How in the fuck did listen? I don't know. I just never seen anything like that before, but we run into stuff like that all the time, you know. And
the wonders of 6 liters. And
it's not just 6 liters. It's you know, a lot of these trucks, right? You know, but the cool thing about it is, you know, I learn, you know, and you know, we even use that as like a case study at the shop. Like what to do when you check your cam and crank signal when, you know, the truck is you know, had a cold soak.
Well, there's and that's what's funny to me too is I think you guys grabbed a couple of key topics that, like, again, you would only know if you're around diesel troubleshooting for a long time. Like, hey, you tested it at idle and operating temp. What happens when you were above temp and below temp? Like it turns out, like, especially once you've done all of your basics, it's like you need to start thinking about things a little bit differently. Like, how does heat and cold impact all of these little components all the way through it? And like you said, like, you add heat and pressure to a hairline fracture, and you now have a gaping hole. But
it was crazy though. But because you would think 6 liters, they've been around, right? And it's like, man, I'm starting to feel like a dumbass because I haven't figured out the issue, right? But at the end of the day, I told the customer, I said, I'm not getting ready to shotgun parts at your truck. And I don't have the answer right now. I don't know what the issue is. But I think that's probably like 1 in a million. You know, and I honestly think, too, the reason why he was having so many issues is because this truck sits.
Oh, sure.
Right? It just sits. You know, there's not a lick of rust on it. Like I said, this thing only has 60,000 original miles.
Jesus.
The ones that sit usually have the most problems. They come in like, you know, turbo vanes start sticking, injectors are going bad. It's like, I only have 40, 60,000 miles on the truck. I mean, you gotta. These things are meant to be driven. You can store them, but that's where I see a lot of issues too.
I'm right there with you, Anthony. I think as I think back too, it's you get into the wild problems when you have a truck that gets 1,000 miles a year, right? Is like that's when you get into the really, like you said, like shit that you like. I've never seen this before. It's like, well, sure, because nobody else ever let their truck only gain 1,000 miles a year. The rest of us paid the money to drive the damn
And I'm
things.
even calling, you know, a couple of good buddies of mine that are, you know, I think they're better than me when it comes to troubleshooting. You know, because we kind of bounce ideas off each other, right?
Oh yeah.
You know, they might run into something that I've seen before that they've never seen before, you know, and vice versa. So I'm calling my buddies, hey, man, you ever seen this? No, I ain't never seen no shit like that. I'm like, I'm on my own on this one. But at the end of the day, that's where the passion is.
I like that.
Fixing and repairing these trucks. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with having a stock truck with a little bit of power.
Well, I think that's what brought you up here today, right? So you have a beautiful dually out there, the L5P. Give our listeners a rundown of it.
2020 GMC Denali 3500. It's pretty stock, but I just ended up reverse leveling the rear. You know, I put some airbags on it. I went with your different wheel and tire package, I guess you could say. I went with some DDC, 22 by 8 point. I forget what they are, but they're 22s with a street tire on it. You know, I'm a street tire guy, so
it looks
it's nasty.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
And then that's pretty much it. No other modifications. Well, with the exception of the tail lights. I don't know if you guys seen that.
I did not.
No, I got aftermarket tail lights from Recon.
There you go.
Well, that's because I backed into it. Well, my tech backed into a light pole.
Sure.
Right?
Sure it was the tech.
No, it was. It was.
Yeah.
Chad, if you're listening, bro.
You're in deep shit if you are.
So he backed into a light pole when we were in Vegas, and the taillights are on back order. And they're like $900 a piece. I'm like, I'm not getting ready to drive around with a busted taillight, right? So I called Recon. They sent me over a set. And we actually had to modify their lights to get them to work with the 2020s.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but they look pretty sharp. But that's it. It's, spikes.
Clean.
Yeah.
That's what we were going for. Low, clean. Kept the same ride height in the front, because, with these independent front suspension, they get ball joint issues. And
as soon as you touch the keys or you touch the front end, like, it's just, they're never the same.
My thing is that it works so well from the factory.
Yeah.
That, like, what?
I mean, it really does.
This is so nice. The ride comfort is so much better than everything else. Like,
yeah, it's a good riding truck. So, like I said, nothing crazy, but I wanted to add some power.
Yeah.
And I wanted to keep everything intact.
So you've had the truck for how long?
Since August of last year.
Okay. So you've got some miles on it, too, by now.
Almost 30.
Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
A couple trips.
Right. A little bit more than our guy who does 1,000 miles a year.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so got about 30 on it, and you got it tuned today. So we did the emissions equipped custom tuning on it. Anthony, can you give our listeners a rundown of kind of what that package looks like?
Yeah, so the package, whether you're going from 17 to 21, is pretty similar. The only difference is your 20 and 21 trucks, TCM tuning is still in the works, so we're only doing the engine side of things. We got you set up with the switch on the fly, custom tuning. Which is
badass, by the way.
Super cool. I know.
That's pretty. Listen, even if you only got me about 50 horse, which you didn't, like the switch on the fly is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I hate drilling, old school, whatever, but just. Right there on the buttons. Yeah. Cruise control is right there,
It's super
You're
nice.
You're going to have to edit that out. So, but no, the cruise control is on the steering wheel. That's pretty dope to me.
It really is.
I love that.
It really is.
That's a big part because before it was just single tunes, and it was, we can send you the different tunes, or if you just want one single tune, one power level, we'll get you squared away. And then HP Tuners came out with the switch on the fly. For the past how many years, it's always been, you got to tap into the ECM, route a switch. Even some of the newer trucks are like that. But it's super nice where you hit the cruise cancel button and you hit, plus or minus for like setting your cruise. Glow plug light will blink for what tune you're in. So, you're cruising down the road and like the whole time we were driving, he's like, man, this thing is so cool. Just switching different tunes just to see how, nice and efficient everything is, especially on these newer trucks. Like they've come light years compared to the older technology.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I agree 100%. When a lot of the emission stuff first came out, nobody really understood it, and the technology was still kind of new at that time, but they've advanced it so much. Even with GM, how they had the filler neck right underneath the hood. Whoever thought of that, they need to be shot.
The same guy who came up with the LOY intake elbow. Probably doesn't have a job anymore after that.
But even just with all the NOx sensors and the DOC and the SCR, it's come a long way. So and plus these trucks have plenty of power now. Like, why would you want your daily driver to be 7, 8, 9, 1,000 horsepower truck? Because at the end of the day, shit's going to constantly break on it.
It sounds so much cooler than it is in reality.
Right, yeah.
It sounds so badass to be like, I got an 800 horsepower. I remember when 750 was like the most you could do in a street truck.
750, you're the shit, bro.
Everybody now, now it's everybody. I want to do 1,000 horsepower daily driver. It's like, you can. We can actually make it drive pretty nice. But like you said, shit's gonna break constantly. Yep. You're never gonna not use all of your power. Like if you have it, you're gonna use it, and then shit's gonna break. Period. Right. Yeah.
No matter how nice the parts are, I'm gonna build the whole bottom end, and it's like, you turn up to tune 5, you feel like getting shitty. It's like all of a sudden something broke. It's like, oh, what happened?
You can always spot an LLY driver because they start off with the biggest problem being building the bottom end, as opposed to an L5P owner that's like, like I'm gonna throw a tune on it, and I'm gonna be at 550 horsepower.
Yeah.
Like LLY, like, because Chach,
are you talking shit about me, Paul?
Are
you talking shit about me?
You're right up at the edge of what we're expecting out of that stock bottom end, aren't you?
I'm right around 600.
Yeah.
I'd say, get depending on the tune, depending on the day. Yeah, I'm right around 600 for sure.
All right. So what'd you think driving it? I know when I got in the L5P, the first thing I thought is, like, this is clearly the best Duramax that's been put out there from a driver standpoint.
Yeah.
They're definitely responsive in stock form. Like, it's always been a note. Like, even like I was gonna say, pulling his truck in, as soon as I put it in gear, I was like, this thing, I can tell it's stock. I was like, just put it in reverse. I was like, I can tell by the throttle response that it is stock for sure. But they are definitely responsive, even like from the factory too.
In comparison. But what'd you think after the tune?
I was blown away because essentially the truck has enough power, right? For the guys that just they use their trucks for work, they tow with it, they daily drive it. That truck's had plenty of power. Excuse me. But when you guys did the emissions intact tuning, it's just the pedal, the throttle response right away was a big difference. And then we actually passed a dump truck, and the power was there like now.
That's so nice.
I'm pretty impressed with it. Got to figure out my trans issue that I have, but my trans is smoke. But I think the way to go on these 10 speeds is if you can figure out the trans side of it, man, the emissions intact tuning is where it's at.
Solid setup for sure.
It's a real solid setup. Like, I think that L5P will, kind of. Me personally, I've driven all of them, right? And I think it outperforms all of them. My personal opinion, So I'm pretty impressed. And I got a lot of customers that have L5P, so we're going to be definitely taking all this back and trying to push this because I love the truck. It's a great truck.
That's awesome.
We barely made it out of the parking lot, and he leaned on it a little bit. He's like, there's that throttle response right away.
Yes. And it's amazing. And like I said, with the switch on the fly, it's, you're cruising on an expressway. There's nobody there. Hit the cruise control button. You want to turn it up a little bit or turn it down. So the convenience too.
Yeah. Big convenience factor.
Yeah, I think I do need a stealth turbo though.
we were looking at them. I showed them the vane cages. You're able to see the improvement in airflows.
Yeah,
it's like that's where all the engineering and Nick and the guys in the turbo bay definitely put a lot of time in. So they'll definitely coming back for a stealth.
Yeah, I think a solid setup on these new L5Ps. Definitely a built trans. Because. It's 10 speeds are just something else, man. They have a mind of their own.
I will say on the Ford 2020 10 speeds, they're pretty lackluster from the factory. And now that they finally have trans tuning on them, I was like, oh, maybe this will work. Because I've never been a fan, ever since we started adding gears. As a driver who drives like an asshole, I don't like it. Give me less gears and worse fuel mileage, and I'm okay with that because I don't have to drive far, and I'd like to drive like a dick while I do it.
Right.
But for all of the other rest of normal humans who buy diesels, that doesn't make any sense, right? It's like, well, give me more gears, get my mile per gallon down, or mile per gallon up, and then we'll start to look at how do we make this work, and that's where I'm kind of wondering on this Allison 10-speed. It's like, is trans tuning going to be enough? Is it going to be a converter? Is it going to be, what is it going to be a part of the build that's going to make it work?
Converters, RevMax. Like I said, we actually just swapped the 2020 trans that a customer blew up. And, we did put a RevMax Stage 5 converter in it. Frank made some improvements, but we're going to actually pull it out and have it restalled. But I'm thinking about throwing one in my truck when we have the trans out to get it rebuilt. Because I'm curious now to see where, maybe going to a higher stall, maybe with the Stealth 2, how this truck would perform. And like I said, the trans tuning is always going to be key. Hopefully somebody cracks that, but who knows?
Yeah, sure.
But I do think this is a solid setup.
That's awesome. If you were to meet somebody who is brand new to diesel today, David, what's the advice you would give them if they came to you saying, hey, I want to build a 600 horsepower truck down the road, what should I do?
Well, that's a loaded question because, are they buying a new truck? Are you buying a used one? At the end of the day, reliability. Diesels can be fun. They are fun, right? But I think once you start getting past that 700 mark, 800, you have to drive them completely different, right? You don't want to send a piston through the side of the block. But you want to go for good, clean power, and you want reliability, right? So I always try to tell guys, with any truck, your transmission, too, is a big problem. You can have all the power in the world, but if you can't hold it to the ground, it's pointless, right? So it's key to know where the factory the limits are at. But as far as, 600 horse, maybe, with this common rail stuff, little tuning, and maybe a turbocharger or something like that, I think it's solid setup right there. The rest of it is just cosmetic.
I like
the pipes and all that.
Yeah.
That's just cosmetic. Bigger intercooler, but 600 horse. You can get there without spending thousands and thousands of dollars.
Right.
Right, and then have a nice, fun truck that you can drive every single day with really no issues.
I think a lot of it too is, you take an LB7, first generation Duramax, if we're talking about, your L5P comparison, you want to make 600 horse, that's a trans, that's a turbo, lift pump, if your injectors are shot, you need injectors. You want to make 550, 600 horse on a new truck, you tune it.
That's it.
You tune your truck, your 530, 550. And
right.
Tim's truck, before we got to 20, the 19 Power Stroke, like me and you were talking, that's 575, 600 on a tune. The trans likes it. The emissions is, again, your trans, depending on how you drive it.
Yeah.
But, emissions equipment is happy. Nothing's changed there. So, it's the newer trucks. Someone calls up and is like, oh, I want to make 550, 600, lift pump and a tune.
Yeah.
And you're done. Usually, there's other, like you're saying, an intake, small stuff, but.
And even if you look at each platform, like a Cummins Power Stroke or Duramax, right? Technically, up to about 700 horse, you really, 600, 700 is kind of where you got to start worrying about internals, right? To me, that's perfect, right? If I can sit kind of below that a little bit, and then I have a reliable truck without, pulling the block and having, what I mean? The billet, you guys know. We're in the same industry, because you pull the engine, you got to break out your wallet.
That's it, right? I tell guys, too, is I'm like, man, once the engine comes out, we should just be talking about 25 at a minimum. That's your floor.
Exactly.
And I don't care what platform. It's by the time we get into fuel, air, girdles, bullshit everywhere, we're going to be talking about a $25,000 minimum. So, hey, listen, if that's real for you and you want to build a competition truck, we can talk. That's cool. We can talk.
Right.
But most of you out there are going to ask about 600 horse, and I'm right on the same page with you guys. Is I'm like, man, if you could spend a little more on the truck and have to put less parts and labor and time into it and get all the creature comforts that come with a new truck, working
warranty,
cruise control.
Warranty, too.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
You start getting these things, and you're like, oh, man, and I think a lot of our listeners, especially newer to diesel, they're not shopping for brand new trucks, right? They're like, hey, man, those are really nice. They're out of my range. I'm looking at LMLs. I'm looking at like CMD Cummins, right? Or I'm looking at that very early 6.7 Power Stroke. It's those guys. That's where I would say get yourself as new as you can, and then be looking to run tune only. And I think that's the recipe to have a lot of fun and not get out of diesel after you buy your first truck, which we've all seen, right? Somebody who bought a diesel, was like, man, I used to own a 95 Camaro and I'm going to make this thing even cooler.
Yeah.
And then they go all out, they blow it up, and they're like, I'm going to go back to driving an F-150. Yeah. And that always breaks my heart because I'm like, we could have done this the right way.
There's a misinformation too. I know you've been off the phones for a while, but we all get messages, we all get calls, and it's like, hey, this is my first diesel. My buddy's telling me to do this and this and this, but you guys are saying something completely different. And it's like, I don't know where your friend got that information or what's up, but we get calls every day. I should say 5 to 10 calls a day. Hey, this is my first diesel. It's a 2021. What do I do? Tune it. Only touch maybe a couple other things, but there's a lot of room to grow.
And then also too, like you said, Anthony, is lack of knowledge. If you dump all this money into a 1,000 horse truck, you have literally just decreased the value of that truck.
You're not getting that back.
You're not
True.
getting
Not
that
even
back,
close.
Right? Like, I'm not going to lie to you. You know, had I waited to build my Cummins, I'm like, man, I could have picked up, you know, a 1,500 horse truck for half the price, right?
Sure.
But, you know, and then you have to think about future value too. Now, I can go trade that truck in if I wanted to, and I'd actually get more for it.
Right now.
I'd actually get more for it because it just has wheels and tires on it, right?
Right.
And a few cosmetic things. But nothing's done to the engine or the trans, and we have some intact tuning. So if I was to go to the dealership and trade it in, especially with the price of trucks right now, you know, I'd actually make money on that truck. You know? Now, once I start putting lift kit, wheels and tires, gay-ass light bar. I don't know if I could say that word, you know, but that's just like, man, okay, you just ruined a perfectly good truck, bro. You know?
That's it, yeah.
When you're shopping, too, like, I mean, granted, mine's a totally different scenario. I look for my LOI. I was like, you know, Chris found it, and he's like, hey, Grandpa-owned truck, nothing's been done. It's already had head gaskets repaired, so you don't have to worry about that. It's like if guys who are out shopping, I should say people like us who, you know, whether you've been in the industry for a while or you're just getting into it, like we're looking for stock trucks. You know, if you're finding a competition build, you can find, you know, 1,000+ horsepower truck in the right budget. Like you're going to save money. But if you want something like, hey, I want to get in, like we were talking earlier, turn the key, drive it, switch a tune, like we're looking for stock trucks, essentially. Something no one's gotten under the hood, messed with.
Let me be the one to fuck everything up.
Yeah, right.
I don't need to buy your
let me
fucking
make the
fuck
bad
ups.
choices.
I'm good. I've bought enough mistakes, right? Like, let me be the one to break everything or to do it wrong or to spec it wrong. Because the fact of the matter is like buying a used, like especially high horsepower truck, so you're just like, man, you're not getting out of this because it ain't fun to drive. You know what I mean? Like you're getting out of this because you can't afford to keep up with it.
Part out.
Or like that's what it
Part
comes down
out.
to, right? Is like you're like, that's not something I'm gonna buy and I'm gonna try.
And it was and here's the thing though too. It was everybody jumped on that bandwagon, right?
Yep.
Got to have you know, who can get to, you know, like you said, you know, 6-7 years ago, man, if you were 750 horse in a diesel, bro, you were big shit.
That
like,
was, yeah.
You're big shit.
You were posting about it regularly
Yeah.
on the forums, Chuck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, when we
And
went to forums. Yeah.
Now you can make 1,000 horse.
No one looks
just
at
like
you.
that, you know, and it's like, okay.
Okay, cool.
You know?
So you're not going to make it into UCC.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. But nothing wrong with having the truck look good, right?
Sure.
I think majority of diesel enthusiasts are on the same page. You get a nice set of wheels and tires,
Yeah.
right? Maybe a leveling kit, you know, and simpler is better, in my opinion.
Oh, see, I like to see guys. I would never do this to my truck, but I love when I see guys like go for like the limo tint all the way around.
Jesus.
I need to black out all the lights. I need light bars on it. I'm like, I really like it when they look like they rolled through J.C. Whitney with a shithead magnet on. I love when somebody else does that to their truck. Or like SEMA, you've been to SEMA and you see the trucks at SEMA and you're like, oh, cool, this is the least usable vehicle I've ever seen in my life. I'm glad you're here representing diesel performance.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
And I do like those trucks.
Some of
I
them
would
is
never own
cool,
one.
right? You know,
Yeah.
but I'm like, man, dude, 12-inch lift. Like, how are you guys getting in and out of this piece of shit?
Why is the
right?
Babe,
frame
come here, give me a
engraved?
lift.
No, seriously. Yeah, I mean, hey, can you guys put a 12-inch lift on? Yeah, but I really don't want to, you know, because I got to test drive it. We got to get in alignment, you know, but this is what these guys want. But, and if you're going to do that, use a good quality lift.
Oh, for the love of God.
Please.
I heard a stack of hockey pucks will get you at least 4-inch lift, bro.
Man, like I don't even do wheel spacers at my shop.
Yeah, done.
No, they call, hey, you guys do wheel spacers? No, because you're not going to recheck them. Make sure they're
waiting to happen.
Yep, and I don't need a lawsuit. So, no, we don't do them.
If you're dumb enough to want them, I'm not dumb enough to install them.
Yeah,
I like
exactly.
that.
But everybody, to each is their own.
No,
right?
I'm not. I mean, I am
No,
making
it's-
fun of a lot of people, but it's
No,
nobody
it's
takes
each
me
their own.
seriously.
And because your truck is like kind of like an extension of who you are, right?
Yeah.
You
Sure.
know? So, you know, customize it how you want. You know, just because you like light bars doesn't mean I'm gonna like light bars.
I drove here in a Kia. I don't get to, like, nobody gets to like be offended, right?
Right.
So-
I drive my BMW. So I got a BMW that I drive sometimes.
Yeah.
Like if I'm in a mood, you know, like, hey, I want to go fast, quick.
Yeah.
You know, I just drive my BMW.
And that's why like I laugh about this stuff because I do think people get really wrapped up into all of these details about their truck. And to me, I would rather be annoyed by the question of like, what type of oil should I run than can you put a 12-inch lift or wheel spacers on my truck, right? It's like that guy that's thinking about the brand of oil quality, you're kind of a nerd, and I kind of want to talk to you, right? Like we are going to get along. That guy who's going to call and talk about 12-inch lift and wheel spacers, bro, I get it. I'm glad you're doing cool stuff with your truck. I really do like the way those trucks look. I would never own one because they drive like shit, but I get it. And that's why I say, like, I'm just the wrong guy to talk to about that stuff, right? I
feel like people like us, we've had the trucks that ride like shit. We've had the stuff that's way expensive. We've learned, and I mean, I'm only 25, but like, a few years ago when I got into this, like my truck had a leveling kit.
Did you just come on this show and say you're 25?
Yeah,
right now, like you're just
sorry, I'm not 100 like you, Paul.
Kind of a flex, bro.
God damn. But it's like even you're into it for so long, you see it every day. Like I still get excited when high horsepower stuff comes through.
Oh yeah.
And then I also get excited when a guy with a stock truck, I'm just here for brakes, clean truck, low miles, nothing done. Like, that's the one we're all staring at. Like, God damn, look at this truck.
Look at how clean it is.
What's done to it? Nothing. Isn't it exciting?
Yeah, because then you don't have to worry about, well, my turn signal's not working. It didn't do that before you came in.
Yeah. Before you
shit
charged
like
my
that.
air conditioner, and my brake light went out.
But no, I'm not gonna make fun of somebody's truck because, like I said, I used to have this old Isuzu Rodeo.
There you go.
2-wheel drive, man. This thing was a rusted piece of shit, right? 5-speed. But I will say this though, I can beat the shit out of that thing. I had it up in like a little river, had water coming in the inside.
Yeah.
And I forget what motor's in that thing now, but the distributor, it sits high and back towards the firewall, so you can go through water and shit like that. And it was a piece of shit. I'm not gonna lie, man. But guess what? It was a fun truck.
Yeah. The most fun you had.
That's it. With a street legal go-kart, did I hear?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, please.
It was a fun truck. So to each their own. You
Yeah.
know? Some of these guys are overpaying for these pieces of shit, though. Like, bro, you just bought an LV7 for how much? Oh, okay. Wow.
Don't look at me. I got a decent deal on my LV7.
I hate LV7s. I hate them.
Damn, I don't have it anymore. So we're good.
What I laugh about too is on that topic is like we saw new trucks exponentially grow in retail price. MAP pricing, MSRP jumped more than the rest of the vehicles in the market, right? So clearly there was demand and manufacturers thought, hey, we can make the money. I don't understand how the economics of that made people believe that their 280,000 mile LBZ is worth $40,000. Right? Like, I get it, it's pre-emissions, and I get you read a lot of bad things about emissions, but that did not make your truck worth more now than when it was sold brand new. It just didn't. Like, it did not. But I guess as long as there's people willing to pay it, they say that's what market value is.
Everything's for sale for the right price.
That's
right?
it.
I mean, I'm serious. It's for sale, but and a lot of misinformation out there, too. There's a lot of misinformation out there. Everybody says LBC is like the god of Duramaxes, They're great, but I've never been
You could do more for less money with an LML. If we're just being real, like you could get to a higher horsepower number for less money and probably like now, like especially if you went with an early one and got lucky on the emissions equipment, I think you could score like an 11 to 12 pretty near the retail price of a clean LBZ. And there's definitely less parts and less money you would have to throw at it to get to say like 550, 600 horsepower.
Yeah, exactly. Tune, you're there.
Yeah. Tune, lift pump, right? LBZ, the list is going to be a lot longer.
Yeah.
Right. Just say that, right?
I mean, LBZ, you want to make that power an LML can, like trans. Number one.
Number one.
You're five, depending on what parts you go in, 4,
you're
5,
down
6
minimum
thousand.
$5,000.
Yeah.
Well, and then too, the comfort of the vehicle though too, and all the little gadgets and.
If you've never had heated seats or a heated steering wheel, you don't get to talk to me about shopping for a vehicle because it went from me making fun of old guys who wanted like sunroofs to now like I would never buy another vehicle that doesn't have heated and cooled seats. Are you crazy? Do you know how hot my balls are? Get out of here. No way.
No, I agree. And that's what I mean. Like these trucks now, I mean, they're nice, man. Like, there's no CD player anymore, no tape cassette. Oh. It's literally, as soon as you get in the truck, it's automatically connected, and then you can run your playlist.
Yep.
and through your apps and stuff like that. I mean, hell, man, even that truck. I mean, that thing's got so many features. I can see where the next fuel station's at.
Yeah.
and then like when you sent me the address here to this location, you sent it to me, and I just sent it to my truck.
Yeah.
I didn't even have to. I'm like, man, that's the coolest thing right there. That's
Do you
cool.
remember not being able to enter something in your GPS? MapQuest.
With 10 pages printed out.
So, yeah, somebody print out the directions.
With
You can leave in 20
I
minutes.
was going to bitch about
directions.
factory navigation. David went all the way back to MapQuest.
MapQuest, man.
We go to put something in, and the number didn't match. Like, I want to go to, we're going to where you at. No streets start with 2, so you can't type a 2 in. Yes, it does. The address starts with a 2.
Yeah.
Nope. Find something
I
else.
go back before that, man. My dad was big on maps.
Oh yeah, same here.
And he would actually plot out his trip, like because we traveled a lot when I was a kid, and he pull out the old Rand McNally,
Yep.
Jeez.
right? And
Yep.
he's sitting there plotting it, and then he write down his little notes.
And then
And
you
I
go
remember-
on vacation and you have the country one, and then you have to have one for each state, as though the one highway you were going to drive through in Nebraska was going to change. So you needed to have a Nebraska map with you.
Right,
At least
and-
that's the way my parents were.
And now
100%.
but now it's like, if they're doing construction,
You're
it
done.
automatically
You're done.
updates to
my
your
phone tells me.
My phone
and
tells me,
reroutes me. Yeah.
So how could you? Me personally, I think that's a pretty cool features that these new vehicles have now too. So.
I agree. Yeah, old trucks are garbage. David Shepard said it here, folks.
Don't trust your shit.
Well, David, I really do appreciate you carving out so much time to talk with our listeners.
No, not a problem. Thanks for
Is there
having me.
anybody you want to give a shout out to?
I mean, no, not
Guys
really.
back home, Hoosier Diesel.
No,
Look 'em
I
up
mean,
online.
yeah. I thought anybody specific, but no. Hoosier Diesel and Off-Road. We're located at 8900 Mississippi Street, Maryville, Indiana. Glad to have, thankful that you guys have us here and tune the truck, and I'm
Good to have
be
you.
doing some R&D on my own too.
I like
I
it.
am I'm gonna smoke my trans. I am. I already know it.
It is good to have goals,
No,
as I like
yeah,
to
I
say.
know, right?
And that is one
Ambitions.
I can appreciate.
But thanks for having me on the podcast too. I know it was last minute, but it was pretty fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Hey, it was a pleasure to have you. Listeners, I know you guys are going to be excited to hear this. Make sure you jump on over to Fans of Diesel Performance Podcast Facebook group. If that name's not long enough, I don't know what is. But once you're there, let's give a shout out. Let's tag David. Tell him he was great on the show. We really appreciate you all of you listening. All right, guys. I think we had.
That was a great interview with David.
I was just going to say, I think we had a lot of fun in there. Big shout out to Anthony Brunetti for joining us. We really appreciate that. You guys can go follow him at Rusty LLY, I believe, on Instagram.
Yeah, Anthony's a character, that kid. Let me tell you.
Yeah. Hey, if you want to hear a young guy who pretty much acts like he's 40 with pit vipers on, definitely go check out Anthony's Instagram page. He'll have a lot of cool truck stuff going on there.
Yeah, he does.
Guys, we would love to hear from you. Jump on over to Fans of Diesel Performance Podcast Facebook group. We have new people joining every day. Awesome topics and conversations going on. It's a great place to tag Chris with all of your Cummins love, and I might even jump in there and reply to you once in a while as well.
Oh, that wraps up today, man. This has been Chris.
And Paul, thanks for listening. For the guys who aren't already following Duramax Tuner on TikTok, which I understand,
It's definitely a different age bracket.
Yeah.